Here today I have Dr. Rudy Acuña, who's been a professor at Cal State Northridge for the last several decades. One of the founders of the Chicano Studies, founding chair of the Chicano Studies Department. Written at least a dozen books or more. One of my favorite is Sometimes There Is No Other Side. One of my, besides the content, I like the fact that I like its title because the title is and everyone, before we get to that, everyone knows Occupied America. It's in hundreds of thousands of individuals have bought it. It's in its 5th edition.
No, it's in the 7th now.
7th edition. I think you just dated me, Rudy, right now. But Sometimes There Is No Other Side. The reason I want to start with this is Rudy Acuña sued the UC system because of employment, because of the refusal to give him a position that the Chicano Studies Department, in fact, had recommended. And Rudy wrote a book about it, and it's called Sometimes There Is No Other Side, basically saying, hey, sometimes you have a moral issue that the opposition does not have a moral equivalency. Did I get that right, Rudy?
Almost.
Almost got it right? Okay. Sometimes there is no other side, and I asked you to come on the show to talk about what's happening in Arizona and to give us historical context and why. But first, let's go back and the Chicano Studies Department at Cal State Northridge was started how long ago?
It started in 1969.
1969. Why did you start a Chicano Studies Department?
Well, I didn't start it. The students started it.
Okay.
They sacrificed, they went to jail, and they demanded a pedagogy that would address their needs, especially the horrendous at that time and still dropout rate, which was approaching 70%.
Now, at Cal State Northridge during that time period, I believe you had 50 students of Mexican descent, I think 50 or 60 African-American students. How many Latino students are there now at Cal State Northridge?
About 10,000.
About 10,000. And I think the total population at Cal State Northridge is around
33,000.
33,000. So, I'm not a math major, but you have approximately a third of the students in, people would say, oh, that's natural progression.
No, it came... 40 years of Joda, it's you had to struggle for it because people just didn't want Mexicans there. Just like they don't want them in Arizona right now. They only want them when they need them.
Now, you're mentioning about Arizona. What's going on in Arizona? There might be some people who, just woke out of a coma and have no idea what's going on. What's going on?
Wow, what's going on is that right now, 2 draconian laws have been passed. SB 1070, that in effect allows the police and encourages the police, and in fact makes it mandatory that the police, stop people and then to check their immigration status. So the state of Arizona now is playing Border Patrol.
Now,
and then the other one is HB 2281, and that law outlaws the teaching of ethnic studies, specifically La Raza studies, in the state of the public schools of Arizona.
Here's one of the core, because we hear about the issue in Arizona, and it just seems to be they're targeting as an immigration issue.
No, they're targeting Mexicans.
So you're saying this is a particular Mexican-American issue.
Yeah,
that's different than it's generally being framed.
Yeah, also the Latinos. You see, you have an awful lot of opportunism. In 1070, for example, and the state is a funny state because it's made up, the veneno is really coming, the poison is really coming out of the Phoenix area, which is in the middle of the state, where it has an awful lot of retirees and a lot of white people. The northern part of the state is against this law. The Tucson area is against the law. In the border area, you have ranchers that are white, that are reactionary, that think that they're ranchers, when they got their property from the state and through leases, etc. And they are vehemently against the undocumented. So you have then these two, then you have the Tucson area in the middle of all of this veneno. And so consequently, what they are trying to do is they're trying to make political hay, the Tea Party movement, but also the elected officials, of getting rid of Mexicans. Getting rid of Mexicans, not only the undocumented, but also getting rid of any program that studies the discrimination against Mexicans.
So your friends at Fox News always try and say that this is just simply an immigration issue. Now you have your PhD from USC. You've been a historian now for how long?
Well, since 1968. But you know, if it was only an immigration issue, would they then have passed HB 2281?
Right.
You know, and now right now they're also going after a law that would not allow teachers to teach English if they had an accent. Now, who are the ones that have an accent over there? You see.
Right. So why do you think this is only being framed as simply an immigration issue? And all the issues of the bilingual education or English language learners, about the ethnic studies department, why do you think it's being framed simply?
Because they don't want to admit that they're racist.
Now, who do you mean by they?
The elected officials. White people get very upset right now. The xenophobes, not all white people, because an awful lot of white people are against it.
So you mean a lot of the white conservatives?
No, white xenophobic people.
Okay.
The people who are against anything that is not American.
Okay.
It's a definition of patriotism. I'm a patriot if I wear a flag. You know, you have Tom Horn, for example. He wants to ban my book, Occupied America, and he calls me unpatriotic. Well, the guy had never served in the military. You know,
and you were in the military.
Yeah, I was in the military. So if he would have been so patriotic, you would have thought he would have gone to Vietnam, but he didn't, because he had better things to do.
Now, are there Latinos who are supporting this law?
Oh yeah, sure you do. You have, but you have people here in the city of Los Angeles that just as soon as they get a mica, are against immigration. They're against other Mexicans. This is, you know, I mean, not many, but you do have some.
Now, I interviewed Father Boyle earlier, and he said basically there is a lot of he was more looking from a spiritual perspective, you know, in terms of what's leading some of these people to be so anti immigrant. What's at the core guiding a lot of their anger? Is it the high number of Latinos that are increasing in the state?
I think it's that. I think they feel threatened. But there's one thing that is not being discussed. We're not meeting the stereotype. The stereotype is that we're in gangs. The stereotype is that we're losers, etc. Now, you have an awful lot of Latinos that now are lawyers, they're doctors, they're engineers, they're teachers. Well, people don't like that, you see. They say, well, why should they have all of these things and I don't have them? You see, and so consequently, it's also the competition. It's also this feeling of themselves that they start to wake up and they're 40 years old and they realize that they're losers. What have they done with their life? Yeah, I mean, not even their wives love them. You know, I mean, so these guys are, you know, it's a terrible feeling for these people.
Now,
they have an alternative: either shoot themselves or join these movements.
Now, people looking at this video are going to say, Rudy, you're being controversial here.
Oh, I'm not being controversial. I'm being very truthful.
Okay.
I've seen an awful lot of these people. You've seen an awful lot of people that always believe, well, if I would have done this, I could have been this. Well, why aren't you that?
Now,
you know, I can look at an immigrant, I can say, well, I can see why they didn't do something. They didn't go here to Occidental College because it cost too much money, or because they didn't come from the right schools. But these guys came from the right schools. Their parents had money, and they're still losers.
Now, in the 1960s, you had Bull Connor. You had a lot of a lot of what's going on in Arizona occurring in the Confederacy, in the Deep South.
I can't see any difference between him and Joe Arpaio in Phoenix. This guy's a Nazi. Now, here, and the media has not been reporting it, but Arpaio, Pierce, Russell Pierce, all of these people have ties to not only to the Minutemen, and the Minutemen also have ties to white supremacist groups. These people are neo-Nazis. They many of them are members of the National, Socialist Party, and this is a Nazi party.